Good morning and welcome to the orchard. Well, one tree of it anyway. So I'm doing a series of explanations, explorations, examples of the many things that are found with examining these old apple trees. So here's just one here, and the orchard extends this way, it extends that way. We're here in south of Ithaca, New York, on the Lionsgate community land. And we found this major orchard here. And I'm going to do as much pruning as I can. I'm here for 2 weeks. And just really show as many techniques and ideas as possible. And put together an instructional video of things that I've picked up from studying pruning. Been studying this for a while. Done quite a bit of the fruit tree pruning, especially these old ones, so I've been developing a bit of my own style, my own sensitivity around it, and I just feel inspired to share. So hopefully this is a good, video series. I'll do my best to cover a lot of the basics. And
So I'll begin with a
take
walkthrough
it from there.
and discuss just generally a lot of what's going on. So here's, for example, here's an apple tree, an old apple tree. We don't really know the age of these trees. I'm going to guess that they're about 60 years old. Um, so basically, you've got where to begin, huh? So you have a structure of the tree. This one's branching out right from the base. And so, you've got to really begin by looking at the major structure. So, here on this tree, there's actually, a split here. This tree has a bit of, so you have this branch leaning way out, which is almost needs to be considered as a whole tree compared to the central stem. So, in this case, because this one is more upright, um, you might want to favor that one. This is kind of a gnarly one to begin with because it's like I said, the shape, the form splits so low to the ground, which could have been done, somewhat intentionally because then you get low branches like this that are all within picking distance. So that's one of the techniques that was used a lot in commercial, or even this could be small scale pruning techniques to make sure that you've got fruit at easy pickable heights, because once the tree gets all the way up there, it becomes more of a task to try to harvest. Even these right there, you need to use an orchard ladder to get out there. So um, so basically, the first principle I'll say is you've got to look at the whole picture first as far as what is going on with the main stems. And if anything is reaching way out to the side, or this one, it shows that, oops, this one shows that evidence that it's splitting, that over here we might want to reduce the weight that's leaning way out and the weight that's leaning way out where it's very hard to pick. So, um, you know, so that's the first thing. Now, the other thing that, of course, is jumps out right away is just when it becomes so dense that just it wants to be lightened up a little bit. Now, the reason for that, especially here on the middle, is to create a good amount of airflow. So of course, light is kind of the obvious thing you want to think about how light moves. But really, to me, I feel like it's even more of a consideration of how the air will move through the tree, because that is going to allow the humidity inside the tree to be regulated, and also, as the air moves around, if there are any sort of molds or disease or any of that, it's not going to be able to just hang out in the middle. It's going to get blown away by the wind and blown around. So you're going to have more of a diversity of so-called microbial, whatever, airborne stuff. You can tell I'm not a scientist, but I do study the science. So now another thing, like you can see right in the middle there, this branch that's coming over, it's hard to maybe tell, but it's actually, it's resting on that branch. So these crossers where it's rubbing on another branch, that's where you want to also be making choices to reduce those, to get rid of anything that's rubbing and crossing. And I tend to think that the tree, if it's coming out this way, it's kind of like crossing its signals. Like the main branch is going this way, and then you have that little one going off to our left. And, it's getting strangely directed. So, basically overall that branch, the second one up there, I would lighten up so that, and that would be, so you start with the macro scale of saying, I want to lighten up this whole stem because it's sort of breaking down there, and then say, hey, which one is kind of getting a little bit too out of control, too much, this big one leaning out there at the top, and then this one below, has a stronger attachment. It's attached lower, further down the trunk. It's pretty straightforward. It still has quite a reach going all the way out there. And so I'm going to do some pruning and trimming on that as well. But, so those are just ideas, and then here in the center where it's just so crowded and leaning and growing into itself, these are the things to be watching out for. Now as well, of course, anything that's dead, and being able to tell what's dead is something that takes a bit of, experience to tell, is this little branch here alive? And now here you can see it looks like it's showing little buds, this one. All right, and so we're actually a little late. I mean, it's early mid-February, but it's actually, spring is kind of becoming on its way. So this really isn't, to be honest, the best, most ideal time to be in here pruning. But, sometimes you've got to just, doing something is better than doing nothing, as long as you're not going to really harm the tree. Like I'm not going to be opening up any big cuts, like bigger than 4 inches. I'm not cutting. I'm going to be removing dead wood. Now, of course, another one that you can see is like this branch here is that's pointing down, right? There's a nice old chuck. Is snapped up top. So that's something that, obviously we want to get rid of that and anything dead. And so anyway, this is just one tree. This is one look at the many, many, many considerations. Of course, we're here where it's just so dense. This is not gonna work. It's not gonna fly. And that branch, it looks like there's a branch up there that's kind of large that is also snapped off. So that's a big, and that cut I might be able to make from the ground. I might even climb a tree like this. Often, depending. In this sense, because I do have like dozens of trees I can prune, I might not. I might give them a bit of a so-called cursory help and just do what's most glaringly obvious, and keep moving and try to be, and then in that sense, be a little lighter handed on these and consider that we can keep this process going for years. So anyway, this is a first glimpse of the many things we'll be discussing, and I hope you stick around. See, this is Tree B, the edge of the field, and it had some breaks up in there, and so I felt like called to get those out. Yeah, that was in this tree, and I did climb up a little bit, and just cleared out the middle, and to make the still branch hanging, to make the inside, to make those cuts cleanly where it was snapped, I pretty much had to go up. But I did a really quick climb in there. I didn't really go up into the tippy tops. I just went up maybe 20 feet.